Greetings and salutations. You are watching episode number 14 of Watchin' VR. Thank you very much for coming and seeing us again. Like usual, if you're watching this on a tablet or your phone or your computer, throw that away. Go get a VR headset, something like this guy over here. This is like an Oculus Go. Go get one of these. Watch this video on that. I am here with Evo Terra of Simpler Media.
Hey, Dan.
Podcast Pontifications. How you doing today, Evo?
I'm doing good. Should I wear the headset for the conversation?
No.
Would that be kind of cool? I'm just looking around like this going, what? Where are you? No, I won't do that. I won't do that.
Yeah, Evo, long-term friend of mine. We've known each other since, 2006, I'm going to say?
5 or 6? Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been at least 15 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been like an entire kid for you, I think. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have a 14 and a 16-year-old, so just about that time frame. We both podcast pioneers. You're like the podcast pioneer. You're like, what number? You had like the number 40 podcast that was on iTunes?
40th podcast. Not on iTunes, prior to iTunes. 40th podcast on Podcast Alley back in the day.
Podcast Alley.
Pre-iTunes. Yeah.
I remember Podcast Alley. That was like the place you would go. You'd just see the reviews, new podcasts would come out.
Yeah.
A lot of supportive people, a lot of trolling people there.
Yeah. Well,
but
surprise, the internet hasn't changed all that much. So yeah, trolls still exist.
yeah. So yeah, back in the day, I was doing like a Star Trek podcast.
Right.
What were you podcasting? What did you start off podcasting about?
So the very first podcast we did was the Dragon Page, which was the sci-fi interview show that Mike Meningay and I were doing. We did that as a broadcast radio show, prior to internet radio and broadcast radio. We started doing that in 2002. So when podcasting came along, we just ported that over to a podcast, which was really simple for us to do since we were already syndicating the show to radio stations with audio files anyhow. It was a quick matter for us to be podcasting, and boom, 40th podcast right away.
Yeah, we were that was on there's like a sci-fi network podcast network that was
Well, yeah, we had built so once we started Dragon Page and a couple of other shows and a few other podcasters said, hey, people said I'm interested in starting a podcast about sci-fi, we started something called Farpoint Media. And it was really just more of a collective.
Yeah.
It was a way to share ideas and thoughts and get a little technical support to really kind of bolster the community as it went on. Yeah.
No, for me, I had run out of my bandwidth with my hosting provider for the podcast.
Yep.
So they picked us up and helped with the storage of the files for a while. So that was nice. That was like my first web page ever was like that too. My provider gave 3 gigabytes of bandwidth a month on the web page.
Right.
And I was doing 1.5 a day. So they shut me down. So it's always one of those things to where I get outside of the, things are popular to, think now you're too popular, even though it's whatever.
Oh, I understand that. Going back in the day, very early in the podcasting days, we had Will Wheaton as a guest on one of our shows and completely took down the servers. I think we were with I'm not even going to name the crappy web hosting company we were with. I remember, but I'm not going to name them because they might, does someday want to sponsor your show. Anyhow,
sure.
So we were just dead on the water, and a listener from Germany reached out because I'd said something on, I don't remember what social network it was at the time because this was a long time ago. We didn't even have a Twitter, but somehow she found out that we had died, and so she graciously rehosted the audio that she'd already pulled down on one of her servers, and we had to repoint everything to that. And so then we were on the hunt for where do we put these audio files so that we never run into this problem again, because the quote-unquote unlimited bandwidth you get from cheap hosting providers is a lie.
Yeah, no, it always is. I can tell you that for sure. It's an advertising ploy. They figure most people are going to be doing, their 25, 50 listeners kind of thing. Right. And when somebody gets into that 10,000 range, they're like, oh, what do we do now?
Yeah, we can't support that any longer.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think a lot of those podcasting companies had a vision of what podcasts can do.
Right.
And it's huge. I do the podcast about VR. It's the PlayStation VR podcast, PSVR Life.
Okay.
So we're on 114 episodes.
Wow.
Coming up here, we do the simulcast on YouTube now as well.
Sure.
So you can watch a show on there. My co-host is in Canada. So with that technology, it's nice just to be able to like go onto Reddit. I need a podcast host. You get a podcast host. You got something going, and you got years and years of thing. It's incredible. But that was like podcasting was my first passion, because that was the easiest way to get your voice out there.
Yeah.
Record a podcast, put it out there. People listen to it. People don't listen to it. Whatever, you have fun doing it. Video is a whole nother thing. And that can have its challenges. But I figured I would want to get like the hardest way to like move podcasting forward a little bit and bring it into virtual reality. So that's my big passion now. Virtual reality stuff. What's your experience with virtual reality?
Very little. I have been aware of virtual reality for a long time. Parallel to my tenure in podcasting, I've ran digital advertising agencies, and so we had quite a few clients that were interested in VR, AR, those sorts of technologies, which my job was, I was director of media and innovation, so I had to figure out what all these things were. So I experimented, dabbled, went to a lot of conferences where they had VR setups and understand what it was, plus from the production side of things. So, but the decision or conclusion we came to all these times, and again, this is going back 15, 20 years, is that the market's not ready for businesses to jump into VR unless they are a gaming or an entertainment company that
Absolutely.
can provide a VR experience. But VR grocery shopping isn't really happening anytime soon.
No.
Yeah. And even augmented reality, for as cool as that might have been, didn't really come to fruition. But I don't think we didn't have yet a good example of that. We might see some in the future, but it just wasn't where it needed to be at the time.
I think like the most prevalent AR thing we have is Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Where you can go and, hey, look, there's a Pokemon in the bathroom. You catch the Pokemon.
Sure.
But everybody I know turns that off at some point.
Yeah.
It's fun. You take a picture, you do your thing, but all of that extra playing with the camera stuff.
I will tell you, since you brought up Pokemon Go and the AR stuff, I want to just share this story. So, as you know, Dan, my wife and I, Sheila, we lived abroad for a number of years. We were in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia the day that Pokemon Go was released in Malaysia.
Nice.
And we were already playing Pokemon Go. We lived in Bangkok. We'd already been playing it. And it just happened to coincide with us being in KL the same day it came out live. And we went to a park to meet some friends that we had met through our traveling days. And no one at the park was playing with their kids or kicking balls or flying kites or having a picnic. Every single person at this was walking around with their phone, catching Pokemons. It was so crazy.
I remember the first like week. I think we were like day 2 or 3 when it was like released officially here. And we went to the old spaghetti factory in Phoenix.
Right, downtown,
and you go outside and you see people and they have their phone and they're doing that. You can identify people in public catching things because they have the spots, and you can tell, here's the spot. Somebody just lit this thing up.
Sure.
There's somebody around there that is playing around with that.
It was great fun.
I'm adjusting my glasses a lot here.
It's quite all right.
Yeah, no, this is my first like remote interview thing. So I come here and put all the equipment in. I didn't have the consideration of I need to like a good like calm down and like de-sweat myself here before I'm doing it. But I got dentist appointment. I got 3 cavities. 44, 3 cavities. I'm not brushing my teeth. Yeah,
not a good thing. No. Not a good thing.
Little cavities. I think they just want to get some money out of me. It's one of those things. Oh, look at this little spot here. We're gonna drill you and charge you $600. Yeah. Virtual reality. When I first got my headset, my Gear VR, I was like, oh, this is going to be popular. You're going to go to Starbucks and people will have this and they'll be watching movies and doing things. And it's like completely the opposite.
Yeah.
Like the handful of times that I went out and actually put a VR headset on, everybody's like, what's that guy doing? What's going on over here? It's completely not a normal, natural thing to be doing.
Yeah, you're right.
Even if I go to a conference, people are like, what are you doing? And it's just a way to pull out of wherever you're at. But virtual reality, in my perspective, is the opposite of that. You're going places. You're going and seeing things. You can travel. There's some really good videos of elephant refuges out there. Other things you can go. There's like tribes that are have been captured on camera before for National Geographic, whatever.
Sure.
But in virtual reality, when you can look around and you can see and get all those little details, especially the people off the periphery that don't think they're on camera, that are doing things and behaving in ways. It's like the best voyeuristic kind of thing to do. So you can travel, you can go to music venues, which, believe it or not, music venues in VR are like legitimate.
Are they great?
Like if it's the right setup, it's the right thing, it's way more powerful. Because if you get somebody, they have their phone and they're holding up their phone for the concert, who's gonna care about watching something like that? I went to Chainsmokers show, and I got my camera out there for a little while and put it up, and like the laser shot and the smoke and the fire and the audience and everybody waving things, and it's 3-dimensional. I went to Vegas and I got some footage there of a concert, and just being able to carry that camera through and just to see everybody dancing and interacting and having fun. I think honestly, VR is going to be that next wave of things, but we need like Apple to come out with their VR headset before that's going to be the case. That's what podcasting really was. Podcasting definitely was a thing, but it wasn't a thing until Apple made it
legitimate. Yeah, as soon as they added podcasts to iTunes 4.7 in the summer of 2005. Yes, I remember all these dates. Had to rewrite a book because of that. That was the big thing that kicked off the swell, and was the impetus for all that. And now we have a resurgence now because Spotify has jumped behind podcasting in a big way over the last year, and that's causing a new resurgence happening, because suddenly you don't have to just have an iPhone to have podcasting native on your device. Spotify has 250 million monthly users, and so now they're being exposed to it more and more. So that's why I think podcasting has really increased over time. And you're right, maybe if it was more of look, to go buy that Oculus rig or whatever else, that's an outlay of cash, right? And
absolutely.
And it's a single-use device. I mean, it does one thing. Where my iPhone or someone's Android phone or whatever, it does a lot of different things, right? So VR is going to have I think a hard road ahead of it, because you've got it's a device that does one thing. So the way you get around that is put a lot of amazing things in there that you can't get anywhere else, and that'll make people say, okay, there's a reason for me to actually put this thing on my head and spend some time watching for the next hour.
Absolutely. The content that's out there for VR, especially VR video, is kind of sparse. You go on there and you do searches, and there's still a lot of test. Their titles have test in them.
Sure.
Or they're doing things that are absolutely not right for VR, like picking up your cameras and carrying them around and going to a location, and now you're moving in the headset and you're like...
That's nausea-inducing, right?
Absolutely. For people who can adjust to it, that's fine, but for the first-time viewer, that's like out entirely.
You know what I'm thinking? So back to my travels from a moment ago, when Sheila and I went and traveled around the world for several years, she did something called 1-minute memories, where she would take her DSLR camera, set it up, and capture just a static shot of carp swimming in a river, or someone carving ruins in, well, not in ruins, but carving letters in China, or someone cooking up some street food on the street, right? And it would last exactly 1 minute. We would fade in, fade out, and capture that with the ambient sounds there, and just set it up so someone could experience what it was like to be there at that particular time, which was great, but very flat. Would have been much greater to actually capture the entire virtual reality of a full setup like this, where you could be fully immersed in it, and as you said, look around, see all the other things that were happening, as opposed to just that. That would be kind of an interesting thing.
See, that's what I predict. Something like that. You'll have your phone, it'll have the 2 cameras on it, it'll be like that already, and then you'll just, when you want to do virtual video, you just put it up there and do your thing. And there's going to be that part of it, and then you're going to have the same device that does have something a little bit more modular, slides in, does your thing, you can do it, and then take it off. Something that's a little bit more that's easier to do. Somebody sends you a text, look at this virtually, you put it in, you look at it, you put your phone back away. Mobile technology still has potential for it. And then you'll have the theater level VR stuff, where you're going to have a nice headset with nice sound, probably, like the little 4D stuff, chair shaking, water squirting on you kind of things. But I don't know if there's going to be potential for that long form, 90-minute, who's going to watch Lord of the Rings in virtual reality.
I don't know. Right, because the cinema does a good job of that right now, and surround sound and all that stuff. So again, it goes to what's the unique experience. To podcast for a moment, I not only was it thanks Apple for doing that, but the content that was available in podcasting and is still available today. Look, you can't get it anywhere else.
Right.
You can turn on the radio, and you're probably going to get talk radio, sports radio, that stuff, and there's plenty of those in podcasting. But those long-form, really in-depth storytelling series, or two people geeking out about every single episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, just by way of example, those sorts of things. There's not a format for that anywhere. I mean, yeah, you can go to YouTube and you can watch things on the web, but nice and portable for long drives.
Right.
That's where podcasting works.
And something that is going to be there like the next week. They're going to be doing. They're going to have that content that you subscribe to. That was the other thing that podcasting had, is the RSS feed, the subscription model, but a free subscription model where you can load it up and you can get 30 of those in there.
Right. You don't have to go hunt and find more content. You don't have to return to a search engine over and over again. Like, no, I want this information delivered to me. So what's the analog in the VR world? How do you say, okay, I'm going to get this, and this is the content I'm going to get on a regular basis, so I know that this person's traveling around the world, for example, and every week they're going to have a new 30-minute immersive experience for me to get to.
Yeah.
I would totally sign up for something like that. If I knew that every single Monday night this was coming out and it was amazing, and that would be a great reason for me to get that.
Yeah, that and the aspect of being able to put it onto social networks things. I see Facebook Horizon coming out soon. I see Facebook Horizon integrating video.
Facebook Horizon, I don't know what that is.
Facebook Horizon is it's a new virtual reality application from Facebook.
Oh, okay.
That is their virtual world that you can go to. So when you go in there, there's there's parks, there's the things you can do. There's activities and places you can go in a virtual world. The closest equivalent, if you've seen Ready Player One.
Oh, Ready Player One, sure.
Ready Player One, Second Life, I think it's going to be closer to a Second Life kind of thing, to where you're going to be advertised to. You're going to have, Facebook dollars. What do they call those? I forget what the Facebook dollars.
I don't even know.
Yeah. I'm going to say lira, but it's not lira.
No,
they have
their cryptocurrency. So right. I don't remember what it's called, but regardless,
they're going to have their own currency that's on there, and I see then when you're going to a place to be able to watch a quick virtual reality video when you go to a web page, those things are going to be there to keep you in the VR world instead of taking you out of that and showing you, the flat Coca-Cola commercial.
Yeah, right.
Whatever.
Yeah, you can't have that. Sure.
So there's going to be an integration of that kind of video in there. And then once that happens, when people have their devices that do this, then you're going to be able to have people's other mini videos of their kid walking, but it's going to be in a virtual reality perspective. That VR180 3D experience. I think once people get that, they're going to be disappointed when something isn't that. There's going to, and flat media that's a terminology I have for. Yeah. Flat media is always going to be around. That's going to be the basic thing, but there's going to be people who have a preference of experiencing things in a virtual reality world over that.
Some things, to get the experience, you need the VR. To get the information, flat video works fine, I'm sure. But if you want more than just that information, if you want everything else was happening, it's a better way.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is, to me, it's, you have radio, you have television, you have the internet with podcasting and media, YouTube like that. I think this is the next tier of thing that is coming on. It may be small, it may be niche, but it's going to be a new form of media that comes up. So
how small do you think we can get it? I mean, that form factor is a big deal, right? And the headphones are easy to put in; they fit in your pocket. Or now we have AirPods Pro, which don't even have wires on them anymore. That makes it easy. The phone goes in the back, but still the ocular headset and all these are kind of big and clunky. I mean, but VR kind of requires that. You have to block out the real world so you can watch the virtual world, right?
I'll show that I have a video. I'll interject that in here of a Magic Leap headset. Which is it's a standalone headset. It has like a big pack that has the CPU and everything in it, but it is closer to a pair of sunglasses, a big giant pair of sunglasses and things like that.
Just slip on and now you're in that world, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I see that being like your like a VR headset being something more like the coverall, like the old lady driving glasses kind of thing.
Yeah.
Something like that that's easy to put on, something that might even be a fashion accessory on top of your head, around your neck kind of thing that you can just pull up, put on, see what you're doing, put it back in that location. probably, your mobile device will always be your mobile device, but it will be able to broadcast the data to that to be like that bridge to handle the CPU.
It's a very powerful computer in those mobile devices.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, the Back to the Future 2. Marty McFly Jr. has a virtual reality headset, and it works very much in that way, where it's around there. He puts it on, does his thing, looks around, gets some grapes, and reaches out and gets a grape and puts it on, and he's watching his 42 channels of whatever that are simultaneously going on in the virtual reality space. So I foresee that being the next kind of thing. There'll be fashion ones that are, Geordie LaForge, VR visors, things like that. So once Apple does it, and once it becomes a fashion accessory and a status symbol, that's when that technology is going to pick up, and this is just like early in it. But I love the format. My videos to me are all super special because to me they're like memories. They're more like, you have your photos and you have your videos and things like that on your phone, but whatever. When I'm watching one of these videos, it shares that same space in my head of an actual memory, so it feels like a reprojection of that. Right. The being able to look around and being able to interact directly with the video the whole time you're watching it, instead of just sitting on your couch with your phone or whatever. It's a powerful medium.
No, it totally is. The limited number of times I've had one of those on my head, and it's always, well, I shouldn't say always. If it's been a good experience, it's been a great experience. It's been an experience that nothing else really can replicate other than having that around, because you kind of do leave where you are for a moment, and you're there and somewhere else, which is fun, a fun way to experience life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time out and sitting with me. Where do we find out more about Evo Terra?
Oh goodness, well, he's all over Twitter, Evo Terra on Twitter. If you're interested in podcasting, check out podcastpontifications.com. I do that show 4 days a week to talk about where podcasting is going, all that stuff. But if you want to see pictures of me with a pipe stuck in my mouth most of the time, I'm on Instagram as well, Evo_Terra, because I already use the other domain for that. But yeah, I'm most places. I'm not hard to find.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Have a good one.